Hello, Elpen here, and today we are taking a look at the OKW meta build order, so let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Now this build order analysis is mainly focused around the 1v1s, as in team games there are way too many variables to really discuss anything in a comprehensible manner. Today we're taking a look at the OKW, but we have already covered some of the other factions, so do check those out. As for factions that I've yet to cover, make sure that you subscribe to not miss out. The opening for OKW in 1v1s is quite straightforward. OKW's first starting unit is almost always a Kubel or a Volksgrenadier. This depends mostly on player preference, and both are viable and sees a lot of play. This is usually followed up by 3 Volksgrenadiers, depending on early engagements. These Volksgrenadiers are interchangeable with the Fusiliers, which does see play, or a JLI, which is a lot more common. An alternative to this is the builds using the 2-1, since it requires that you have the SWS tech truck tucked in earlier in the build order than you usually would. Most common here is to see the Kubel and 2 Volksgrenadiers followed by the SWS truck, then to grab the 2-1, which is followed by another Volksgrenadier. You don't have to actually tech with the SWS truck, only have it constructed for the 2-1 to be buildable, and therefore you do build it earlier to give the 2-1 as large of an early window as possible. In a more general sense, OKW has a strong starting position and can therefore be quite aggressive. If heavy losses are sustained in the opening, you usually tech up ending up on 3 Volksgrenadiers, though 4 Volksgrenadiers is common before teching. For the actual teching, OKW either goes Battle Group or Mechanized. Battle Group provides you with healing, access to the flak half-track and the League, while Mechanized provides the Lux and the Puma. I would say Battle Group is quite a bit more common, though Mechanized still does see play and provides the faction with some unpredictability, since Puma and Lux holds a lot of early game potential, which sometimes can make your opponent play safer until your first light vehicle is revealed. In the case of Battle Group, you usually take straight for the flak, half-track and healing, which is either followed by a Raketten or the 4th Volksgrenadier. The flak half-track is a strong vehicle, but can require a bit of babysitting with snares in the chances of Stuart or AUC, which is dependent on the matchup. This is especially true in games with heavy early fighting, resulting in Raketten being delayed. As for Mechanized, the most common is to go straight for the Puma, as it sometimes can result in a free light vehicle kill if your opponent is not prepared. Lux is less common, and Lux is usually also followed by either a second Lux or a Puma to double down on chances of winning, since teching is going to be delayed quite a bit either way. This is a risky approach and can very easily result in quick losses if managed poorly. This is also less common to see with Panzer Fusilier builds, as Panzer Fusiliers are mainly an investment into the late game, and this build is focused on early advantages. Panzer Fusiliers also require quite an expensive munitions investment before they become more worthwhile than Volksgrenadiers, and munitions are more precious in this build since it's required to get healing from your Stern Pioneer. Both of these teching paths commonly sees follow-ups of machine gun 34s whenever manpower floats. If an even map is held, it's very common to see double MG34 before further teching into tier 3. These are of course also interchangeable with doctrinal options such as Fallschirmjägers or another JLI. If OKW gets on the back foot, a second Raketten is instead necessary to make sure you don't lose the match on the spot once that enemy medium hits. After tier 3 is teched, you almost always sees the Panzer 4J as the follow-up. As for Obersoldaten, they do see play, but they are usually used as more of a replacement of Volksgrenadiers if you lose them, and they are not common to see as a part of any actual build. Your general late game composition as OKW is almost always going to consist of a Stern Pioneer, 3 Volksgrenadiers which are interchangeable with other infantry, 2 MG34s, 2 Rakettens, and if you can keep your Kubel alive, it provides a neat bonus with its Vet1 map hack ability. Keeping your flak half-track alive is also good, since it can provide with anti-air and as well as a strong suppression platform. As for other vehicles, all of them sees play, such as the Jagged Panzer IV, Mad Panther, Tiger or King Tiger. Most commonly, however, you do end up with two Panzer IVJs, as they are well rounded and usually end up being your first vehicles to grab. I would say that OKW does suffer a bit in the late game, as their units are all quite pop heavy compared to allied counterparts, often leaving you with a smaller force, hence why strong breakthrough units are more common than the more static, slower vehicles. Your munitions priority for OKW, I would say, is a bit different depending on your matchup. I would say sweepers is always the most important upgrade, especially versus Soviets, though getting some fast mines down and the chance of a Soviet M3 opening is quite strong. Getting early weapon upgrades for your infantry is also important, as OKW has access to some quite strong early upgrades that don't require teching investments. JLI G43s or Fusilier G43s should always be prioritized over Volksgrenadier STGs, though they are also quite important, as they perform better on all ranges. For mechanized builds, you always want to make sure that you have some healing left over in your base, otherwise make sure you spend munitions on it, as keeping your squads healthy will have a larger impact than upgrades will. A Shrek for the Stern Pioneer is also an option here, though I choose to keep it out since not every player appreciates the value of the Shrek on the Stern Pioneer, and personally I would rather get another STG on the Volksgrenadier or to throw a couple extra incendiary grenades. As with any faction, I would always recommend to be floating at least 50 to 60 munitions at all times to make sure that you can punish reckless vehicle behavior with snares or to get sneaky mines down. Now I plan to make a lot of these sorts of guides in the future, and especially for KO3. So if you do plan to pre-order KO3, please do use the link down below in the description and use code ALPERN on checkout. This helps me directly by giving me a cut of the purchase. Now thank you, and thanks for watching.
I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice way.